Hey everybody, this is Alec Tackmann here. We're looking at GoAndPractice Book 3. This is going to be page 20 and 21, titled The Right Hand Fill with Layering. So this fill, this is kind of a funky one for soloing. It kind of reminds me of, something maybe Tony Williams would have done. This kind of static repeated phrase that you can throw in some variations here and there. You can mess with crescendos, decrescendos, and kind of draw on people's attention for a moment. How I kind of found this one actually goes back to the Dennis Chambers VHSs from the 90s. And in those, he was demonstrating a fill that he was taking from Billy Cobham, which was just triplets where you're playing cymbal, drums, bass drum, and it was kind of like... And of course, he could do it a million miles an hour. And then he had a variant that was double strokes. And I never personally liked that fill a whole lot because I don't like to crash a cymbal without a bass or a snare with it. So, I just decided, well, how about I just put a bass drum with it and then there'll be a little bit of overlap. So if we go back to the original triplet one, on that first crash, instead of the repeated pattern here is just put a bass drum there. And that's going to be the essence of these two pages. Throughout this, it's just variants of what to do with your left hand while you're repeating that cycle. So step one is you want to get good at that. A couple things you need is the ability to do a double stroke across two different surfaces. So we're kind of stepping down from your cymbal to your floor tom. Some people call that a sweep or a scrape. And then you'll need a pretty decent double stroke on the kick drum. When this gets going, you're basically playing like a shuffle rhythm with it. And then what's cool here is it feels like there's triplets happening. I mean, there are, but like it feels like the triplets are happening just on the kick drum. And that's just all done with the right side of your body. Then the left hand and the left foot, I guess, too, are free to do whatever they want. I usually don't do anything with my left foot during this. I'm just so preoccupied with not messing up the pattern. But for me, it's usually kind of about throwing in the left hand on this one. So number one is just that, getting the hang of this pattern. Number two is our first, this is on page 20. Number two is throwing in our first snare hit, and it's just going to be on beat 3. So if we're calling these eighth note triplets, triplet, 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 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 3 just adds another one. Number 4 completes the cycle. This one's going to sync up with the floor tom hit. From there, then we just repeat that. It's essentially a quarter note triplet you're playing with your left hand. All right, so that would be the first, third, and fifth counts of the triplets. Page 21 is getting the second, fourth, and the sixth, which is still a quarter note triplet feel. It just kind of begins on the upbeat. So then number 1, we kick it off on beats 3 and 4, starting with a rack tom. 2 and 3 are my favorite. This is the one I usually do when I'm playing this, beginning on count 2. Count 2 meaning the second triplet, triplet, like that. And then now we get that established. once you're comfortable with just playing that, then I think it's pretty cool to keep that rhythm going and then start floating the left hand around. I think just back and forth between the rack tom and the snare works well. If you got more toms, you can play around with something there too. So I'll set up the ostinato first, and then I'll bring in the left hand part. If you want to get more jazzy with it, the last one, number 5, is the same thing. You're just doing a cross stick. And it's weird because like that alone is going to sound, it's going to sound like a completely different like parallel time signature happening. It's this really cool polyrhythm. And like normally I'm not into this kind of stuff where it's all about like X amount of beats happening at the same time. But this one I just think sounds, pretty cool in drum solo settings. When instead of just like rapid firing all these licks for a while, you can sit on one repeated, it's almost got this like kind of hypnotic, it kind of sounds like a broken washing machine, going. But I think it's a really cool vamp to sit on, and it kind of draws in people's attention. And then you bring out this left hand part out of nowhere. It can be pretty cool. So number 5, I'll try this one out. A little bit lighter, a little more of a jazzy vibe to it, I guess. So anyway, that's the right hand fill with layering. Learning it is one thing. The next thing is, and this isn't in the book, but you gotta do this with any of these licks you learn, is you gotta be able to get into it and get out of it in the context of what you already know how to do. And this one for me is one of the most challenging ones on making this happen. So what I usually do to get into this one is I'll play what are like sort of inverted double stroke type patterns. So we'll take like that kind of stuff where I already a little bit have that pattern happening in the kick drum. You could single or double the right, it doesn't matter. And then I'll just end with some kind of flam triplet thing. So like in a greater context. So anyway, that's the right hand fill with layering. Check it out. It's in Go and Practice Book 3. Thanks for checking out the videos in the series. I'll see you all in the next one.